Hello and welcome back for part 2 of this Treadspeeder display I'm working on. If you saw part 1, you'll know that I was working on creating a base for this, and after sealing this with some essential Mod Podge, which I'll have to drive for about an hour. The box says to take about 20 minutes, however I went and did some other bits and pieces, so I've left it for about an hour. It's nice and dry now. So I'm going to take this texture gel and see how this turns out. I've never used anything like this before, so I'm definitely curious to see how this turns out. I think I'm just going to essentially take my hand and just plonk it on. Then these on. So I'm just going to dip. Oh, that feels weird. And essentially just plaster this on and see how it comes up. This isn't quite as thick as I was hoping. It's got this one has glass beads in it, which is interesting. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to turn out. Now, supposedly with this you can mix it with paint. However, I'm going to paint over it when it's dry rather than leave it, or rather colour it while it's wet. See, some bits I'm running quite smooth and letting it, other areas I want it quite clumpy. The idea is that eventually this will be more of a sandy colour. And what I might even end up doing is getting some actual sand and spraying it on or sprinkling it on while it's wet. There we go. I hadn't realised when I got this one it had glass beads. I think I might have tried getting something else which had more of a grit to it rather than a bead. It was quite expensive as well. It was £10 for this small tub. And I've probably used about a quarter of it already. However, it's not too bad. I suppose it would depend how it dries, but we will end up seeing about that. But I do think I might get some sand and sprinkle that on while it's wet. So let it soak in with the paste or the gel or whatever it's referred to as. You see here the little glass beads on my hand. They are definitely a bead texture. You're definitely going to want to use gloves or something like that when you're doing this. You probably don't want to get it on your hands and then have to wash it down the sink. You can imagine that causing problems for wildlife. There we go. I'm quite happy with that. Yes, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go get some sand and sprinkle that on while it's still wet. And I think I will use actual sand. Yep. Okay, so now I need to try and take these off. Okay, so I've just got some sand. All this is regular children's play sand. I got a big bag from Smith's for like £3. That's all it is, and I'm literally just going to pour this on. Oh, the only other thing I did, which can't really be seen, is I ran the speeder through to give a look at the tracks. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is put my glove on. I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to get a spatula. And spread this on. Like so. Put too much on it. There we go. I'm going to very carefully take that outside and dump off the excess sand, and we'll see how this turns out. And there we go. You can see a lot of the paste or the gel is now showing through, which is fine. I really don't quite know how I want this to turn out, so I think it should be fine. I'm going to spray over it once it's all dry and paint it anyway. Just going to run the treads along to give that appearance of the speeder running through the sand, and you can see there where I plan on then sticking it. And now I'm going to get tidied up. Okay, so we are back, and I'm now going to start customizing the Treadspeeder itself. I know I mentioned in the previous video I was probably going to prime everything and paint it all from scratch. However, after careful consideration, I decided to just go ahead and paint straight onto this. The main reason is because looking at the Treadspeeder, a lot of the colours Hasbro have used aren't far off what the actual Treadspeeder looks like. It just it's dirtier, it's more machine-like than obviously the kids' toy. So my initial thought is I'm going to essentially start by giving this a wash in black paint to dirty it up, bring out the highlights, and then from there I'm going to start layering on in other areas where I feel the paint's needed. So normally when I'm painting I like to use Citadel paints. However, for this, because it's a much larger product and I need a lot more paint, I've just bought some really cheap paint from Lidl. It was 28 different colours of acrylic paint for £4. So I'm going to take this black paint, I'm going to put a big dollop in the spare coffee lid I have. I'm going to tighten that up. I'm going to drop some water in here because I want this as a real wash. That's probably more water than I need, but we'll see. I'm going to give this a really good mix. This is too watery, then I'll add some more paint. Yeah, it's probably a little waterier than I would have liked, which is fine. I can add some more paint to this. This is just going to be trial and error in terms of this. That's a lot So I have no ratios to recommend here. This was literally just dumping some paint in and dumping some mortar in until I had it's more like a paste than a paint, which is fine, which is what I want, because I'm then just going to take a brush and I'm going to brush this over. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's a nice thick wash. And then I'm going to blot off a lot of the excess as we go through. Really want to make sure I bring out all of the panel lines and leave the dirt on. Again, I'm just going to do the same down here. Really what I should have done is maybe put some green stuff on here to hide the zigzag. But I don't think it's too bad. I think once it's all blended in it won't look that bad. Same here, nice thick wash. Really want to make sure the paint's going into these panel lines. I really want to bring out the panel lines, and then again I'm just blotting the paint away rather than just wiping it. Once it's blotted, I'm giving a slight wipe just to give the dirt some streaks. Same this side. Again, there is no right or wrong to this. You can do it however you want. I'm literally doing this as I go along. Once I've blotted the paint up, I can then use it to go over and wipe, giving that dirty look to it. Again. There we go. That looks so much better already. Now I'm going to do this with the entire bike. I'm going to initially dirty everything up with this wash, and then I will go over with the layers I feel I need and want. Same as we go through all of the machine parts. I'd be surprised how much the black actually shows up already on the black. Again here. You see how much paint has literally come off. Barely any is being left on this speeder. It is just a very fine wash, but it's leaving it. That's as much as I can use. This one is falling apart. That's fine. See, already just this wash is bringing out so many highlights and really bringing some life to this. Just that almost looks, the gun sections now look almost metallic from the wash. I'm going to do the same with the treads. I'm going to give these a really, really good coat. Come up and blot them away. Same up here. Getting all and filling all I am leaving quite a thick amount of paint on my brush. I'm not really dabbing off the excess, which isn't what you want when you're actually painting for fine details, but because I want this as dirty and as grubby as I possibly can, the excess paint works wonders. Let's see, there already. Highlights. Now the underside, or the back side rather. You don't want to do too much, and you don't want to leave it too long. You want to be able to have it still quite wet. You basically want it as wet as it's going on so that it blots off. If you're not happy, you can go over and do another coat. Same with the underside of these feet wells. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. And blot that up. Going to wash all of this. In theory, you could have used, or you could use a Citadel wash, but again, they're really small bottles, so for the volume you're doing, it's better to just have a really cheap paint, because you're going to waste so much of it. I want that as coloured as possible. I don't want that. What I'm doing is I'm getting the dirtiest towel and literally going back over now that I've blotted it off and wiping it so that the wet paint from the towel wipes across and leaves smear marks. And there we have essentially what I wanted to do with this. That is basically all I can do with this now, until I'm happier that this is dried, and then it'll be putting on the other layers. But for now, that's not a bad start. So there we have our first stage of this speeder done and dusted. This is going to be a slow process because obviously I'm doing the base, I'm going to do the figures. I suppose in theory I could bring in the figures now and do them, however I purposely want to wait until the end, until I have a better idea of the colour scheme I've used on the bike, so that I can match things like the dirt and the dust with their suits. The idea will be that I will probably do some panel lining on them to bring out the moulding on the figure. However, then I will probably go over with some sort of sand colorings and dust just to make them look like they've been riding through the desert, but that will be in the coming days and weeks as this goes on. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I will be back soon.